Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Vegan Proteins, Muscles by Brussels Radio. My name is Giacomo.
And I'm Danny.
And this is episode 106. Hopefully you enjoyed tuning into the last episode, and if you haven't, I highly recommend giving it a listen because it is the perfect tie-in to what we'll be talking about today. But at the moment, I want to thank you for continuing to tune in and hope you're doing well. We are moving along with some big plans for this year, but I'm super curious to check in with you, Danny. I honestly don't know much about how this cut has been going for you.
Oh, well, very well. As of recording this, it's still the end of January, and I assume this is going to go live probably the second week or so in February. That's my guess. So hopefully by the time this goes live, I will still be doing quite well. But yeah, I made a video about why I'm doing this cut and how, and then did a what I eat in a day video, and I will be recording a what I eat on a refeed day video very soon. But as of today, I'm 23 days into this cut and down 7 pounds. So I'm pretty pleased with that. Can't beat that with a stick. Some people might say, well, is that too much weight? It's just over 2 pounds in 3 weeks, 2 pounds per week in 3 weeks. But I don't think so, because you can safely lose up to 1.5% of your body weight per week without dipping into your muscle. Anything beyond that, not great. So I'm like really at the upper limit of, I think, how much I could lose in a certain period of time. I suspect as this carries on, that rate will slow down, right? The more you lose, the slower you lose it. That's just how it goes. But I'm only doing this for 10 weeks total, and I'm just past 3 weeks into it. So I still have another 7 weeks to go with not 1, but 2 trips in the middle of that. So there will be 3 trips total throughout this 10-week cut.
How do you feel about coming off of a cut and immediately traveling where you're going to have access to all kinds of interesting restaurants and the buffet at the cruise and all that? Like, what are your thoughts on...
Well, right now I feel pretty good about it, actually. I mean, we just got back from Los Angeles where there was Donut Friend and eating out pretty much every day we were there. And I think I made some really smart choices in the way that I was eating while I was eating out, where I was choosing, something pretty healthy on the menu, and then if I wanted to try a bite of your dessert, then I had a bite of your dessert. Or if I wanted a donut from Donut Friend, I had a half of it and then maybe had the other half the next day. But it all still worked within my calories and macro goals. And I also find that when I'm traveling, I'm much more active than I am here. Like at home, my butt is in front of this computer all day. When I'm at home, the only movement that I'm doing is my workout, and then I kind of like either walk on an incline on the treadmill at night or sort of jog in place watching TV at the end of the day to hit my cardio goals and my steps. But if I wasn't doing that, like I would not get in a lot of movement right now, it being winter. And so when we travel, I mean, getting over 20,000 steps in a day is not even weird. Whereas it can be 7 o'clock at night and I can look at my watch and be like, cool, I got 2,000 steps in so far. So that sucks. And then I have to find a way to get it all in because I'm just working all day.
It has been so refreshing to see you on a cut for the first time in a very long time. 1, because obviously you committed to putting on muscle, and 2, because, hey, it's cool to see what things are going to look like. And also this side, right, of you, the cutting side, like just seeing it in someone else that I live with, eat and breathe with every day, as opposed to just seeing it in myself. It's just been refreshing to take a look at that. And, it's part of the game when it comes to working on your body composition. For me personally, I remember the end of the year, I'm like, I'm going to do this with you.
Huh. Not so much.
No,
Nor should you, really.
Well, I'm still sort of flirting with the idea, but I'm not completely sold on the idea of pulling back my food more than I already have after this recovery phase, which is done. I have my 8 weeks worth of recovery. I'm am where I am, and I'm going to be here and stick to being here. And at this point, my hunger signals are pretty much stable. And part of me wants to pull food back just a little bit, and the other part of me is like, nah, you just did this for a year and a half.
Yeah.
I'm like not in the mood.
Yeah, no, I get it. I understand. But I felt very ready for this, and it's been a nice change of pace. It's just been nice. So far, so good. All things good, going very smoothly. I still have, as of right now, I guess, wait, how many pounds do I have to go? Like 8. Like 8 pounds to go. I'm already basically halfway there, 3 weeks in. But I do have a trip to Vegas, and that's like a fun trip. I booked a trip for me and my mama for my birthday, which I'm very excited about. And then we're going to the Arnold in March, and those will be 2 big trips to try to stay on track with. But I came back home from Los Angeles lighter than I left, so I hopefully won't be too big of an issue.
Hopefully you're reaching your goals. You wrote them out, thought about them, worked on them. You want any support from us, you know where to find us. You could shoot us a message anytime if you're not already part of our private community. And we have some cool workshops and challenges that will be running in the next couple of months. So
No, this month. When this goes live, we are starting our next fat loss challenge on February 20th. So if you want in on that, probably should have come to the 5 keys for vegan fat loss, but don't worry. You can still get in if you want to jump in to our 12-week fat loss challenge. It is one of our most popular programs. People constantly ask, when is your next one? When is your next one? Well, it's February 20th. So if you would like to be a part of that, go to veganproteins.com. You can sign up right there. What are we talking about today, Giacomo?
let's dive right in. Last episode, we talked about lifting minimalism, right? What you can do and still make progress. And the thought process was, well, when you're taking a minimalistic approach, you better do what you're doing pretty damn well to get results. This episode, we're going to talk about time wasters that are getting in the way of your goals, essentially. There's so much of that. There is so much of that. And this is a pretty broad topic, and I'm sure we have different things to add to the conversation. Danny, for me, when I think about time wasters that are killing my goals, the first thing that comes to mind is, what am I doing outside of the gym and how can I do it more efficiently? And why don't we start with that? I think that so much time and effort goes to planning the perfect routine around meal timing, around pre and post workout meals, around your sleep schedule. Like, I think when it comes to those who want to get the absolute most out of life and the most out of their results, they want to achieve their goals, they wind up spending so much time trying to like nail the perfect schedule. And if you ask me, that's a way to kill time, honestly. Like just trying to plan instead of just doing. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's a matter of putting one foot in front of the other and then finding out, how do I say this? You're not going to have the perfect routine. You're not going to have the perfect meal plan. And by the time that you do, it's probably not going to be working for you anymore. That's not how habit building and routine works, essentially. You know, there are some basic things that you can do, tips in that arena to save time. One thing I think of that works really well for me is to have a simple list of foods that I typically enjoy, right? I don't try to get super creative with recipe planning and menu planning, for example. Like most people, I'm a creature of habit. Like I have foods that I know that work for me. So even though I get bored, I try real hard to like just remind myself that I'm probably going to eat the same way for like at least a month or so before I even get remotely bored. And sticking to that can really make grocery shopping easier. It can make meal prep easier. It's just less to think about.
I never get bored. I like never get bored eating the same thing all the time.
Except post-workout meal.
Well, no, I'm not bored. I'm just never satisfied with it. But that was actually on my list also, was just searching for the perfect plan. Planning out the perfect plan is, for a lot of people, is an enormous waste of time. So let me explain why. I don't think planning is a waste of time. I think planning is very, very important. And actually, another thing on my list is not having a plan at all is a giant waste of your time. But what I see a lot of, and I think this is what Giacomo's talking about, and I see it in my messages sometimes. It's the same people just asking questions on and off for months. Months they're asking questions about, well, what if I tried this? What if I did this? What do you think about if I did this instead? And it's like, any one of those things they suggested would work if they actually did it. But they spend so much time just planning, and it's like they won't even try to execute until they think they have the plan, that they've sometimes wasted, and I am not kidding you, like years of time researching, planning. A lot of these people know more about training and nutrition than you would ever expect them to, because they've spent so much time researching, but they haven't actually done anything. And it's a huge waste of time. And actually, side rant here, I think the entire self-help industry literally relies on people doing this, because when you learn about something or read about something that you want to be doing, it like gives you a hit of dopamine in your brain as if you actually did that thing, even though you didn't actually do anything. And then you finish reading your self-improvement book or whatever, and then you could do the work that the book said you should do. Or you can just go buy another book and get that same flood of dopamine to your brain as if you were improving your life, when really you're just reading a bunch of books. And I apologize for anybody that feels attacked right now, but it's true. Like, that's just, you're not actually doing anything. You're better off actually doing something than wasting months and months and months trying to create the perfect plan, whether that's training, nutrition, productivity, sleep, lifestyle, whatever. Don't spend so much time researching it.
Yeah. And then the opposite of that, though, is you do want to have some sort of plan. Some research helps. You don't want to just throw caution to the wind and forget that how understanding basic training principles and basic nutrition principles, those kinds of things do in fact matter. You want to have some fundamental understanding here, right? And having that knowledge also helps. It only goes so far as to how you can apply it, though, to what you're doing day in and day out. Otherwise, you're going to disillusion yourself, and you're going to wind up thinking you're further along than you are and just being frustrated, like, I have all the answers. Why aren't I doing this thing?
Yeah, I think diving in without a plan is not a smart move. But if I had to pick between over-planning or over-planning and doing nothing, or under-planning and doing something, I'm going to pick the under-planning and doing something every time. But just don't let that go for too long. Like, do come up with some sort of a basic plan for yourself. Otherwise, you're wasting your time doing something you think might be the right thing to do, and then you find out, like, oh, there was a way better way to do this. And if I had just learned a little something before I started, then probably would have been in a better situation. This happened to me. When I very first started my fitness journey when I was like 19 years old, I spent months just doing cardio and not lifting anything at all. And it's to this day, it is still a big regret of mine, but I just didn't know. I'd rather have done it the way I did it, because I did eventually get where I was trying to go, than just sitting around reading and never doing anything. Because then you can get like overwhelmed sometimes by all the information. Anyway, but you don't want to waste too much time kind of screwing around without a plan, because then you're just wasting your time. You're not going to get the results you want.
Hey listeners, we hope you've been enjoying this episode, and we appreciate your love of all things vegan fitness. For those of you who want even more support on your vegan fitness journey, check out our Muscles by Brussels community and become a member. By joining the team, you are one of our exclusive VIPs. As a member, you'll find over 200 macro-friendly, high-protein recipes that can meet any of your meal planning needs. You'll also receive training programs that update monthly. This training has progressive overload built into it, so you can be sure if you're following the program, you are making progress. All of this and more is located inside our Vegan Proteins members-only app. As a Muscles by Brussels member, you'll unlock bonus courses, challenges, and more every month. You'll also be invited to our live Zoom video calls, which happen 2 times a month, and are absolute gold to those who show up. And if you can't make the calls, don't worry. You have the opportunity to email us whenever you want. You'll receive a video response to all of your questions from one of the coaches here at Vegan Proteins every time you message us. Members also receive 40% off many of our other services. And of course, our private community of like-minded individuals is like no other. Best of all, you can try this membership out for a full month at no cost to you with this special offer for our listeners only, because we appreciate and want to fully support you. Use the link in our show notes to sign up for your free trial today. We hope to see you on our next live coaching call. What else do you think about in terms of wasting time?
I think that not keeping track of what you're doing makes a lot of your workouts a giant waste of time.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Yep. Well, sometimes I feel like I have the chance to assess the data. Sometimes I'm just mining the data. And honestly, sometimes, well, yeah, you're right. I mean, even if I'm not assessing the data when I keep track of workouts and this and that, I'm still collecting it on myself.
Yeah, I don't think you have to assess it.
Right.
But like, if I'm going to go do a lat pull down, I want to know what I did on my lat pull down last time so I can make sure that I'm doing at least that much. Try to match it or beat it. Otherwise, you're just guessing every single time. And I constantly meet people who are like, oh, I'll remember. No, you won't. No, you won't. I mean, I just exercised like 3 hours ago and I already don't remember exactly how much weight I did on this or how many reps I did on that. So there's no way you're going to remember it for an entire week. And this isn't to say guaranteed everything you do will be a waste of time if you don't keep track, but some of it will be a waste of time. And if there is ever a more precious resource than time, I don't know what it is. So I do not want to be wasting a goddamn minute of my time, period, full stop. So just simply jotting down what you did is going to help make it so that the next time you do that same exercise, you're not wasting your time doing less than you're capable of doing.
I think of how I have grown as an athlete over the years because I used to track and then insist that I evaluate and I analyze what I was tracking. And, hey, sometimes you can do that. And quite frankly, there's real benefit to that. However, that is a time-consuming process to assess and evaluate what you're doing. I will tell you what, Danny, when you keep track of what you're doing, there's something subconscious going on where you do wind up trying and pushing harder, and you do wind up becoming aware of what you're not doing, how you can improve, whether it's doing an exercise a little differently or changing your intensity up on how you're training or changing your exercise, this or that. Like the simple act of tracking what you're doing, even without consciously analyzing, you do wind up just being more aware of what you're doing. Put it that way.
Yeah.
And that is a time saver as opposed to saying, well, if I track what I'm doing, then the only way it makes sense to track what I'm doing is if I'm actually looking at it. Otherwise, I'm just wasting my time. No, you're not. The act of tracking puts you in a position where you're more aware of what you're doing and you wind up making changes without having to sit there and extrapolate as much as is humanly possible out of that data.
Mm-hmm. And you'll be grateful you have it at some point. Like I have notebooks, paper notebooks with my lifting journals in them all the way back to probably like 2007. And it's very interesting to look at now just to see how far I've come. So I think there's lots of good reasons to keep track of what you're doing, certainly in the gym. Going back to the going in without a plan, this kind of goes along that same thing, is like literally walking into the gym without a plan of what you're going to do, like not repeating your workouts week after week is, in my opinion, a waste of your time. If you walk into the gym and you do something different every single time you go there, how are you going to get better? How are you going to improve at those things if you're just kind of winging it every time you go in? Now, it's not an entire waste of time because anything that gets people moving is a win in my book. But if you're trying to get actual results, winging it every time you go to the gym is, honest to God, one of the dumbest things you can do, in my opinion. And I will die on that hill. Constantly changing up what you're doing in the gym, you're never going to get better at anything. Not on purpose. You might trip and accidentally fall on some results, but it's not because you did something intelligently. It was basically by accident. And again, time being the precious resource that it is, wouldn't you rather have a plan? And get get the ball rolling, the momentum created on some of these lifts, on some of these muscle groups. Like the first time you do a lift, your brain isn't used to the lift. It's not even your muscles that are weak. Like your brain is not used to the lift. It takes a couple weeks for your brain to get neurologically adapted to the movement pattern. That's the gains you're seeing in the first couple weeks of doing a lift. You don't even start to make strength gains until after that happens. This one annoys the ever-loving hell out of me. That's why I sound so heated.
I'm sure you have more ideas. I have like some, I don't know if I'm going off topic here or not, but I think about the time that I do put in versus wasting actual time on the clock. And I want to make sure that the time that I am putting in is well spent.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's an important thing to talk about for this particular topic, right? For example, you could be going through the motions with your training, or you could be lifting with focus and intensity, right? You could be resting unnecessarily long at the gym, or you could be resting for the appropriate amount of, I guess that's more a matter of wasting the clock, but you could be training in a way that helps you work towards your goals, or you could just be plugging away with the same exercises that don't work for you. So, I mean, there's all kinds of ways too where it's not just wasting time on the clock, but like actually being efficient with what you're doing.
Yeah, one of the things on my list is you're doing junk volume. Like if you're doing junk volume, then you're wasting your time. A lot of people go in, and if they're doing like their chest, for example, they think they need to do a flat press and an incline press and a decline press and a fly and an incline fly and a pec deck and a this and a that. And it's like, at some point, that's just junk. That you can't possibly be bringing the effort that you need to that lift, so you're just wasting your time at that point. So learning this, which is what we talked about on the last episode, what do you need to be doing to make progress, and past what point are you just wasting your time working on a particular muscle group?
Yeah, and I don't think people ever get over this, because doing the same thing over and over again, like doing the same 6 exercises for 6 months or longer, it's hard. It's hard to do that, right? It's hard to commit to a simple yet effective training routine. However, that's how you want. The more adapted you get to your training routine, the more you get out of it. And it seems like that should be counterintuitive, because it's like, well, my body is adapted to this. It's easier for my body to do. It's not going to work as hard. And that's true. However, there are ways that you can change up your routine without changing up all of your exercises. For example, like you only need a few good exercises, and you need to be able to do them really well. Plus, you can become stronger at those exercises and get even more out of them, as opposed to like neurologically trying to relearn a whole new set of workouts that you, even though you've done them in the past, you haven't done in the past 6 months, for example.
Yeah. Another one I would say is lifting with bad form, or lifting with like a partial range of motion by accident. You know, there are reasons to lift with partial range of motion sometimes, but I'm talking about when you're just kind of bouncing your way through a bunch of exercises without actually getting the full range of motion, or you're doing something with bad form. Not only is that a potential waste of your time right now, but if you get hurt, you can be wasting your time for the next 6 weeks while you wait for this thing to heal. Like, just by not making sure that you're lifting well, like with good movement patterns. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Why don't we move over to food? And this might seem like a no-brainer, but batch cooking food works. Having a stock of food that you're going to come back to, especially when it comes to protein, right? Because let's face it, you're athlete-minded. You want to make sure you're getting in the right amount of protein. It's calories and protein always. Like having enough protein to last you for a month, like your favorite options, whether it's packaged chicken strips or your favorite recipe from our site, like the bagels or the seitan, for example, stuff like that. and then of course having backup, like quick recipes that you can come back to, as opposed to being like, oh no, well, I need to batch cook and I need the perfect opportunity to batch cook, and if I have time for it, or if the grocery, like having options, essentially, ones that are quick that you can whip up in a heartbeat, and also ones that you can prepare ahead of time, and then having that backstock of options.
Yeah. I don't have a lot here, actually, in terms of food, other than I had, what you mentioned, the very first thing you mentioned was like searching for the perfect diet, searching for the perfect macros, like spending so much time trying to figure out the perfect macros that you don't do anything at all. Like, you're probably never going to find the quote unquote exact perfect macros, because that doesn't actually exist. What you need to find is macros that work to get you the results that you need right now, and they're going to change.
How about this one? This is what's coming to mind for me right now, Danny. When you're mostly in a stable place, when everything is working really well, you don't have to do too much to move the needle, right? You're where you want to be. Your systems are firing off well, and now you're going to sit here and try to pick everything apart. You need control macros when you don't need to. You're going to try to like overthink how much protein you're getting in. You're going to try to obsess over every single rep.
Yeah.
And so like there are times when you need to encourage your body to change, whether you're looking to get leaner, looking to bulk, like whatever it is, your body's when your body's in flux, it makes more sense to control variables. When your body is in a state of balance, but you're still improving and you're working towards your goals, you don't need to like control every single variable. And I find people get into this place where they're constantly trying to pick things apart when they don't need to. And if you ask me, you're taking away your ability to focus on other things, right, outside of your fitness, and you're also taking away from your fitness. Like you could be looking at other areas to improve, or like planning ahead or doing other stuff, but you're too busy trying to like pick apart things that are already working well.
Yeah, I think people are constantly trying to change their diet even when things are going really well. And some people at first, when they start working with me as a coach, as a one-on-one coach, this is a very hand-holding service. This is an oversight of everything that you're doing kind of a service. And people will do will set up their macros or their nutrition or what have you. Will do their first check-in. And then I say, wow, everything is like going really, really great. We're not going to change anything. And they're kind of like, huh? What do you mean? What do you mean we're not going to change anything? Are you like not going to change things like for sometimes weeks on end? And it takes a while before people start to understand, like, do you understand the fine freaking line we are trying to find? And if we found it and if we kind of nailed it right off the bat, why would you mess with that? The best check-in that you could possibly get from a coach, the best news is, wow, things are going great. Keep doing what you're doing. Don't change anything. If a coach is having to make changes constantly in order to keep things moving, things aren't going super well for whatever reason. It could be a number of reasons. But the more frequently things are changing, generally speaking, the less well it's going.
I can concede a little bit there in terms of exercising variety.
Sure, yeah.
But to a point.
To a point, yeah. We're not just changing the workout because you just decided you're ready to change the workout. That's not smart. But especially when it comes to food. We cannot just be changing things just because. Like, you don't understand. We're trying to walk a tightrope here. We're walking it, and now you want me to throw you a ball while you're up there? Like, that's not a smart move. No, I will not be throwing things at you while you're gracefully walking a tightrope. So the other one that I have here is worrying too much about supplements. Like spending so much time worried about supplementation and what supplement and how much supplement and what time, and should I take it with water? Do I do that pre-workout or post-workout? Hey, do you think if I add this supplement in, it's going to help me blah, blah, blah? And it's like, hey, did you hit your macros? Well, I kind of hit my macros like 3 out of the 7 days. got pretty close, but what do you think about L-theanine? And I'm like, I think you need to hit your macros. That's what I think you need to do. Like, you need to be getting fruits and vegetables and sleeping, and we can worry about whether this pre-workout's better than that pre-workout at a later date, but Does that make sense?
Unfortunately, that continues to happen, and I was desperately trying to not just crack up to the point where you couldn't even hear Danny, because this rant is so familiar, and you would think that it wouldn't happen anymore, but it's going to happen at least one more time.
Mm-hmm. And there are times and places for supplements where some, carefully chosen and placed supplements for certain people are really going to help improve where they're at. But most of the time, you're like, I can't even think of an analogy that doesn't have swears in it, but you're trying to dress up something that's not very nice, okay? You're trying to put the cherry on top of a crap sundae. There we go. That's the nicest way that I can put it.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome. I had like 5 different analogies and they were all just like, nope, inappropriate. Nope. Can't say that. That is definitely problematic. Okay. Cherry on a crap sundae. Just, it's not, you're wasting your time. Focus on the things that matter. All right, moving on to our question and answer segment. We're both going to answer this one. What are the least effective exercises you see people doing at the gym?
What are the least effective exercises that I see people doing at the gym?
I got some.
I want to go with one that'll probably ruffle feathers, but I'm going to say crunches.
Crunches. Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Well, yeah,
I guess they're pretty ineffective. You're correct. Mm-hmm. They're not on my list, but I do have an ab one. Side bends. Please don't do side bends. Please don't do goddamn side bends and then come talk to me about how you want a smaller waist when you're literally doing a waist thickening exercise. Like, what? Don't do that. Any kind of behind the neck presses or pull downs. It's not that they're ineffective necessarily. I think they're risky enough that we probably should not do them. Like a behind the neck pull down, a behind the neck press. Too risky for the shoulders. Let's just not.
What about that machine that trains your shins? How do you feel about that one?
That muscle is very tight on me, so I don't think I just don't think it's particularly necessary. There's this one warm-up that people do all the time where they hold a light dumbbell and they hold it like elbows at their sides at 90 degrees, and then they internally and externally rotate their shoulders. And it's like, what is that? That's not how gravity works, bro. I don't know what you think you're doing, but that's not it. So don't do that.
Forearm curls?
No, man. See, here's the thing. A lot of exercises that look useless have a place. Forearm curls and wrist curls and eccentric wrist curls are fantastic for recovering tendinitis injuries. So be careful when you judge exercises because you never know where someone's coming from. I would also say holding on to the treadmill while you're incline walking, or holding onto the Stairmaster, like leaning on the Stairmaster while you're walking up it. You're not doing what you think you're doing.
What about the rowing machine when people just like don't even put any effort into it and they're just swinging around wildly?
Yeah.
You ever see that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. This could be a whole
we could keep
podcast on its own.
I was thinking the same thing.
But we have an appointment, so we have to run. So we'll answer. This might be its own whole podcast. This might be worth doing a whole podcast.
Yeah, if you have any other ideas and other stuff that you want us to talk about, or on this topic in particular, just shoot us a message, because I think it's about time you and I got into like a really salty episode about something silly.
I'm here for it. All right, everybody, thank you so much for tuning into another episode of Vegan Proteins Muscles by Brussels Radio. Please stay in touch with us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. We're at Vegan Proteins, at Muscles by Brussels, and Athena is at I Am Just Athena, and she would love the follow as well. Reach out to us at veganproteins.com. You can always send us an email or hit the contact button there, and you will hear back from one of us almost immediately. Hope you're having a great day. My name is Danny.
And I'm Giacomo.
And we will talk to you soon.